We are rolling right through season 2, folks, and my guest today is such a wonderful person who has made it his life's mission to serve others. He is the former chairman and CEO of the 2014 Special Olympics USA Games. He was the founder of Nelligan Sports Marketing Inc., an entrepreneur, an advocate, an author of the deeply moving book Live Like Sean, and most importantly, dad to Maura, Megan, and of course, the beloved Sean. We pray that his soul is resting in peace with the good Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. TJ Nelligan is with us today.
Happy to be here, Lisa. Good to see you.
Great to see you. And remember to watch the video version of our podcast and see Rick's smiling face. Oh, let's do that line again. And remember to watch the video version of our podcast and see TJ's smiling face. Please visit neverloseyourcape.com. TJ, I'm so psyched to have you. It is such a blessing, and I can't wait for our viewers to learn all about you and your story. But as always, we like to warm up with some fun segments. So I'm going to ask you 2 rapid fire questions to get warmed up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, first off, what are you binge watching on television right now? Or what is your favorite current TV show?
Well, that's a tough question, a very good question, because I think from the beginning of COVID to now, I have watched more Netflix than I've ever watched in my life. And I go on now and I'm like, watched it. So it's been hard to find things. But one of my favorite shows is Ozark, which is coming out with season 4 soon. And the problem is when it comes out, you know it's a good show and you're sitting there at midnight and you're like, okay, just one more. And you end up watching 2 more and you never sleep.
Exactly.
So Ozark is my favorite. I watched Money Heist is really good. That's on Netflix also. And Lucifer I've been watching lately.
Oh, every time I see that, my Netflix is prompting me to watch that, and I'm too frightened by it.
It's actually really good.
Oh, maybe someday. I like that second one that you mentioned, though. I might check that one out.
Money Heist is really good. Yep.
Yeah, Money Heist. That one sounds interesting to me. Best thing about quarantine 2020?
Well, I think a couple things. When COVID hit, you know, I'm used to a very gregarious guy and like to go out golfing and hanging out with my friends. And I think the first few weeks of lockdown were torture because you couldn't do anything, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't go out for dinner. And the positive that came out of that is my building, I now live in Florida most of the time. I have a place in Hoboken still. I met so many people that live in this complex, and I have so many good friends that I met during quarantine. And then the first thing we were able to do down here in Florida was go out and play golf. So I played 100 rounds of golf during 2020 and met so many people out there. But I think the funniest thing about COVID is my youngest daughter, Megan, is introverted and, you know, into theater and different things, just graduated from Syracuse. And one of the funniest things she put on her social media was, oh, now you people want to know what introverts do for fun.
I love your answer. It brings me such joy because I love hearing that quarantine did sort of force us to become social with our neighbors. And I'm the opposite of my husband. My husband's very introverted, but I'm extroverted. I love neighbors. I love meeting the people that live around me. I love getting to know people, but that just warms my heart to hear that you were able to meet so many people that live around you and sort of come together in 100 rounds of golf. You should be proud of yourself. That's amazing.
It's not easy. It's a lot of work. But, you know, the other thing I learned about quarantine is you learn a lot about yourself because you're stuck with yourself when we were locked down for so long. And I'm not used to being locked alone. I'm used to a lot of people around. So I think it makes you more comfortable with who you are and, you know, living your best life and being the best person you can be.
Absolutely. Now we're going to get right into this interview here. What's interesting and very, very unique about you, Mr. TJ, is that I think that there are many hands that we are dealt as human beings in life. And I think that losing a child is one of the most difficult hands that you can possibly be dealt. So please tell us a little bit about what it was like when Sean was born.
Well, when Sean he was born in New York City, and we took home, his mom Maggie and I, what we thought was a perfectly healthy baby boy. And over the first couple of years, he started to have developmental issues and couldn't walk for a long time or learn to talk. And about 2 years old, we went to a neurologist who's world famous, and we went to his home office in New Jersey, and he spent about an hour with Sean. He had all his EEG results and did various stimuli for an hour or so. And then Sean waited in the waiting room with his grandmother. And Sean's mom and I, Maggie, went into the doctor's office and sat down in front of his desk. And the scary thing about that meeting was I looked at all these diplomas from Harvard and Yale and all the books behind his desk that he had written that neurology students study to become neurologists. So I knew at that point that whatever he said, it was probably going to be true and it was fact. And it did not make me comfortable at all. It just scared the heck out of me. And I didn't have a good feeling that he was going to give us good news, and he didn't. I mean, he basically said Sean has intellectual disabilities, developmental delays. As he gets older, it will become harder on both Sean and you as his parents, and it'll become more pronounced. And he'll never live a normal life. He'll never graduate high school or college. He graduated from high school. And he won't fit in with mainstream society, and it's going to be really hard. And then, over the next few years, it's really hard for parents because all you do is go to doctors and speech therapy and physical therapy and medicines and anti-seizure medication, and it's torture for the parents. And then at some point, when he became probably a young teenager, he developed this unbelievably amazing personality. And he was really funny. He loved music. He loved sports. And because I worked in college sports for 25 years, the last 15 having my own company, we went to thousands of sporting events, from college football and basketball and the Big East tournament and many, many Final Fours. I think I went to 25 Final Fours in a row while I worked in the industry. And, I bought him an iPad when he was in his early teens, and he memorized all of the college sports logos, which was dumbfounding to me. I didn't even understand how he could do that. And then one day the scores are scrolling across the bottom of ESPN, and he's telling me who's winning all the college basketball games. So he couldn't read, he couldn't write, but somehow, whatever your passion is, whatever your limitations are, the brain is amazing. It just gave him the ability to have that passion and to be able to figure out who's winning games. And while if you asked him what's 7 + 7, he would look at you and change the topic. If he didn't know the answer, he wouldn't answer. He would change the subject. And yet we're sitting at a Giants game, and the Giants are winning 7-0. He goes, "Dad, one more touchdown. Giants are going to be winning 14-0. And so I think my daughters, Maura and Megan, said it best. They always said that Sean was an angel on earth. And we always thought we had to protect him from stumbling, which he did a lot, or from people that might say mean things. You always worry about that as a parent. And that we were going to have to teach him about life. And the story ends that he taught us way more about life and how to live, and that we should emulate him because he was so authentic and genuine and such an amazingly kind and generous human being.
I love hearing how funny he was and how he just had such a passion for sports. Now, being a parent of a child with special needs is the ultimate definition of perseverance. Because, like you said, even from before they can speak to you, it's doctor's appointments after doctor's appointments. And I have three little ones myself, and we're very fortunately blessed that they're all healthy. But even a typical day with them can be exhausting with questions and all these different challenges. It just comes with childhood, but on top of extra doctor's appointments and all that, everything that parents of children with special needs have to go through, what would you tell people out there to our listeners are the tools that you use to persevere through such a challenging time?
Well, I think it takes time because in the beginning, you have to be the advocate for your son or daughter and find the best schools and the best groups. And whether it's Special Olympics that changed our lives, when he was about 5, I got on the board of Special Olympics New Jersey and did that for 15 years. And that changed his life because he now competed in sporting events. He loved basketball. He was really good at basketball. And he did other sports that he did mainly the way we do playing high school or college sports is the camaraderie and the teammates and the friendships and all those things that develop from that. But I think the biggest thing is you have to see the world through their eyes. When you look at the world through your eyes, I thought his dreams were shattered. And I woke up one day looking at him and I realized his dreams weren't shattered. My dreams were shattered for my first son. And who am I to think that way, right? I watched him grow up and become this amazing human being. And he was perfectly happy to be alive. He couldn't ride a 2-wheel bike, so we got him a big giant 3-wheel bike. And there comes a day down the road, which you don't even realize it happens, that one day you realize that he doesn't know the things he can't do. He only knows what he can do and what he can achieve. And that's a great day because one day you wake up and you don't see the disability anymore. You only see what they can do and what they can achieve.
I love so much of everything that you just said. Number one, I want to reiterate how powerful what you said about Sean's dreams, that you woke up and you realized it wasn't his dreams that were shattered, it was your dreams for him that were shattered. And how long did it take you? I think that's such a struggle, and that's such a mature thing to come to when you realize that. How long did it take you to get to that point of realization?
Well, I don't think I got there until he was probably in his late teens to
Mhm.
realize he's out there, he's persistent, he's working as hard as he can. He's grateful. He couldn't spell the word, but through his actions and his life, he was so grateful and he was so genuine and authentic, which is why I have the funniest stories. A lot of them I put in the book. I mean, we're at the Super Bowl in Phoenix and we're ready for the first bus, of course, because we have to go 3 hours early and watch everybody warm up for 3 hours because that's Sean. And I was there with my business partner and his son. And all of a sudden, and Sean is wearing Eli Manning's jersey. The Patriots are undefeated. We have no shot. The only person in the stadium that thought the Giants would win was Sean. And so we're standing in the lobby, and in walks Peyton Manning. And at the top of his lungs, Sean was so loud, good Irish, loud voice. In a booming voice, Peyton Manning starts walking toward us. There's no one else in the lobby. And Sean belts out, "You're Eli's brother." And I thought Peyton Manning was going to lose it. He started laughing so hard. And I said, "Has anyone ever said that to you?" He goes, "No, never, ever." So the boys chat with Peyton. They get their picture with him. We go to the game. And as we know through history, the Giants upset the undefeated Patriots. And he was the happiest person in the stadium. I think it's possible he was happier than Eli, who was the MVP and everything. So about 2 years later, we're walking along the waterfront in Hoboken, and Eli lived 2 buildings away from me. And I look down and I see Eli Manning walking toward us with the little dog. He gets up to us, and Sean starts chatting with him. And I thank Eli for everything his family has done for Special Olympics because they've been very involved, and tell him about Sean. And I tell him the Peyton story. And Eli starts laughing and hugs Sean and goes, "That was you, buddy? No one talks to my big brother like that." And so he gives him a big hug and goes, "You're the man, Sean." And then Sean looks at him with a sad face. And because it comes across as genuine and authentic, he gets a really sad face and he looks at Eli and goes, "Eli, please beat the Eagles this weekend. I hate them." And we had lost probably 5 times in a row to the Eagles. And Eli gets the same sad face back and looks at Sean and goes, "I hate them too, buddy. I'll try."
This is amazing. Sean, I can already feel how much of an extraordinary human being he was. I want you to tell me about what it was like to see Sean play in the Special Olympics.
Well, our friend Rachel was working for us for the Special Olympics USA games, and we bid on these games. And at the time, we raised about, this is 2014. The games were all over the state of New Jersey. The opening ceremonies were at the Prudential Center. The place is packed. We had tons of celebrities there, and we raised probably $25 million dollars and had the highest profile games at the time in the history of Special Olympics USA. And to watch Sean, he played bocce ball and he won a gold medal and a silver medal, and all his cousins were there and his aunts and uncles and tons of friends and family. And it was just probably the most gratifying week of my life because the athletes that were there, 4,000 athletes, 80,000 spectators, 10,000 volunteers. And, we did so many things outside of just the sports for the athletes that they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. And I still get messages on Facebook and everything from athletes from Texas and Florida, and North Carolina, and New Jersey talking about that was the best week of their life. We did other things. We created a Jersey themed boardwalk with all the games and rides and food and celebrities signing everything for them. And every night, Monday through Thursday, we had a giant ship that took 1,000 athletes and coaches around Manhattan. And I know big executives in Manhattan that have never done this. They go around the Statue of Liberty, around the skyline of Manhattan. And, that's something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. So that was one of the most gratifying weeks probably I've ever had. And I told all our employees as we prepared for the games, it took us 4 years to raise all the money, put all the world-class venues in place, and we were in business for 1 week. So that's the definition of an entrepreneurial organization, which is you work for 4 years to put on a games that are going to be held for only 1 week.
What do you think he loved so much about competing?
Well, I think he loved the sports, but he really didn't care whether they won or lost, which is incredible. And if we lost a game, he'd be like, we'll get them next time. What he liked was the camaraderie and the friendships and, all of his teammates. And at his memorial, there were 15 of his teammates in their basketball uniforms. And there was about 1,000 people there. And that was even more moving to see how much they loved him. And he was like the glue in the middle. He was always in the middle of every picture. He always was hugging. That was his signature thing. He'd give you a bear hug and never let go.
I mentioned before that I have 3 children myself, and I am trying to teach them that they are a squad, they are a team. And so, how would you describe Sean's relationship with his sisters?
Well, his sisters were amazing. Maura has changed her life, and she went to back to college, graduated from college, is going to get her master's next year at NYU to be a social worker at a special needs school. So she's going to help thousands and thousands of Sean's over the next decades. And his other sister, Megan, who just graduated Syracuse a year ago, created a unified basketball game at her high school that's going on its 8th year. And unified sports is the girls and boys varsity basketball teams from, she went to Morristown Beard, combined with the Special Olympics athlete and play a unified with half and half on each team. And it raises money for Special Olympics New Jersey. But I think that, even all their friends adored Sean. He was just so funny, and they were like second and third moms to him. And, the relationship they had with him was so special, and it was just so amazing. It's so nice to see, your daughters and all of his cousins. His cousins changed their lives. One volunteered for the World Games for Special Olympics in California. They created a Best Buddies chapter at their high school that all 3 of his cousins were the president of 1 year. And then his other cousins down in Virginia created a unified track team at their high school. So they were all there for the 2014 games. And after those games, they've all changed their lives to give back to others and to be, great citizens in the community to help their fellow, men and women out there, which is great.
I love unified sports. I'm a big unified sports advocate. I used to coach high school basketball in Connecticut for a number of years, and we had unified sports at that high school. And so, if you're listening to this, get involved in your unified sports program in your town or support it. I just think that people like Sean are put on this earth to make the rest of us better. I really, truly believe that. And so I wanted to ask you, what would you say are some of the top lessons that Sean taught you?
Well, I think that he changed the person I would have been. I don't know who I would have been, but I wouldn't have been the person I am today. I worked on Wall Street before I got in college sports for 7 years. And I was in the, Michael Douglas movie, Wall Street. Greed is good. He who dies with the most toys wins. Little narcissistic egomaniac like the rest of these crazy Wall Street sharks. And I think then Sean was born actually a month before I got into college sports, and then spent 25 years doing that, 10 with Host Communications, and we represented everybody. And then I started my own company for 15 years. And Sean and his best buddy from Special Olympics, Bobby, worked at Nelligan Sports doing all the accounts receivable. So the last 15 years, I worked with Sean and saw he'd walk around the office on Monday and talk to everybody about, who won what games the past weekend in sports. And, he taught me a lot of lessons, which is why you write a book. If there was only one, there wouldn't be a book, or it'd be a short story. But the main lessons for someone that's an entrepreneur, or type A personality, or anybody really, is, to be grateful. That's the hardest thing to learn, and to be present. How many times am I walking around a room and I'm talking to you, Lisa, and I say, oh, there's the CEO from XYZ company. I need to go. Sorry, I got to go make a deal with this guy. Instead of learning to be present with the person you're with. And he was present in the moment all the time. He had special relationships with everybody because he remembered everyone's name, which they were amazed by. And he always gave them a hug, and he always asked them what their interests were. He learned about the people. And one of my favorite stories I put in the book was the first day his mom dropped him off at Nelligan Sports. He comes up, they do accounts receivable. At the end of the day, we go to leave. We're walking past the doorman, and Sean stops and says, hey, Bruno, nice meeting you. I'll see you next Monday. Say hi to your granddaughters. I felt about 2 inches big. I'd walked past this man to my office for 10 years. I didn't know his name. I certainly didn't know he had 2 grandchildren. And after that, I said, oh, Bruno, I'm TJ Nelligan. Oh, yeah, I know who you are. I felt 1 inch big then. So the irony is Bruno came to all our Christmas parties after that. We made up for it.
Isn't that incredible, though? You walk by this man every day for 10 years. Never.
Yeah, I said, good morning. I think I'm being nice, but he knew his name. He met him for 5 minutes. And that was his personality. And it didn't matter if it was Eli Manning or Derek Jeter. I mean, he met so many high-profile coaches in college sports because of our business, but he treated them the same as he did the doorman. Or he'd go to Wawa, and he'd hold the door open for like 15 people. And just watch him, you go, wow, we should emulate him. He's an amazing human being.
Right. And I think that that's so important, is that is what you said about how present he was with each individual person. I think that is absolutely a lesson that is in Sean's legacy, that each and every one, I hope my listeners take away, is that be more present with each person that you interact with every single day. What do you think that are some, you are clearly now at this point very full circle. Like you said, you had sort of made peace with, the son that you had wanted to have one day to the son that you have now. You had come full circle, and you got to a place of where you felt like you had the child you were exactly meant to have, and he truly made you a better person. But early on, what do you think are some misconceptions about children with special needs that scare adults, that scare parents that might have just found out that they have a child with special needs? What would you say to those listeners?
Well, I think it's really hard in the beginning because, I was in denial. I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then that day at the neurologist was like Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's what I felt like. I got punched in the face that day, and the denial stage was over. And then you have to work to do the best you can, whether it's finding the right school or finding the right organizations that fit the exact needs of your, son or daughter. But I think it is to bring them everywhere. I mean, Sean was so comfortable because if we brought him somewhere and he was loud, that was somebody else's problem. That wasn't my problem, And if somebody didn't want Sean at something, I'm not going. So I brought him everywhere. He met all the athletic directors and coaches and everybody, and I brought him to golf outings. We did a Special Olympics golf outing for 15 years, and other people's outings I'd go to, he'd come, and he became friends with my friends. And I think that he taught all of them. And the hardest part, about the book was for me, I knew that he affected my life the way he did, and his mother's and all his cousins. But when you see the letters that his teammates and family members and cousins and everybody wrote about how he changed their life, I mean, who thought that a special needs child with intellectual disabilities would leave a legacy that he's changed the lives of thousands and thousands of people who will go out there in the ripple effect and change other people's lives? That's the amazing legacy that he leaves us with, is his love and his kindness. And he didn't know the difference between $1 and $100 bill, and it teaches us that all these material things we're striving for all the time, means nothing. Nobody's on their deathbed saying, boy, I wish I worked harder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so now we asked you about when Sean was born. We've had incredible stories of his life. Can you walk us through a little bit of how the end of his life happened?
Yeah, well, I think it was totally unexpected. I mean, he had a seizure disorder that he didn't have a seizure for 15 or 20 years. And on Father's Day in 2019, I was with him alone, and I woke up that morning and he had passed away, and it was just devastating. But nothing prepares you for that. Somebody told me that, if you lose your husband or your wife, you're a widow or a widower. If you lose your parents, you're an orphan. But there's no word for losing a child. There's no word anywhere that's ever been created. And I was on Mitch Albom's radio show, who kindly endorsed my book, who also lost a child. And he said, that's good. I hope they never come up with a term, because that would normalize it, and nothing normal about it. There's just nothing normal about losing a child.
Absolutely.
And I don't
Absolutely.
think you
And
ever
so,
get over it.
right, that's what I was going to ask you, is that how would you, this podcast is all about perseverance and hope. What would you say to parents who recently lost a child? How would you tell them to get, what would you tell them that to get through such a challenging time?
Well, I don't think you ever get over it. I think you learn how to live with it and you move forward the best you can. And I always try to tell myself that, and his sisters and his mother, that, Sean doesn't want us to be sad. Sean doesn't want us to, he wants us to, live his legacy and to help other people and to be happy and to smile and to go out and hug people. And so it's almost 2 years. Next week will be 2 years. And I think it's like part of me died with Sean that day, but part of him is in me forever.
I also think, and I'm so thankful to you for being so vulnerable and honest with us about your feelings and about Sean's life. But I also think that these words that you wrote in this book, Live Like Sean, make it so powerful. And the fact that you were able to write words about this amazing little boy's life in this book is truly amazing and inspirational. And I will be the first one to say I'm so grateful that you wrote this book, and I'm so fortunate that you were able to take the pain of losing a child and turn it into this absolute positive thing that is now going to be a source of uplifting inspiration for others. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
Well, thank you very much. It wasn't easy. And what's ironic is I never planned to write a book. And when I wrote his eulogy, I came up with the term live like Sean. So as I'm writing all these funny stories and anecdotes that I wanted to tell everybody, and there was almost 1,000 people in this room, and I came up with the term live like Sean. I put it on golf balls. I have little bracelets that say live like Sean. And then I got done, and my friend, who's on television in New York and has written 4 books, comes up to me and hugs me and said, that's your book, Live Like Sean. You know how many people you'll have? And I was like, are you out of your mind? Did you see my SAT scores in English? I'm not writing a book. And then I decided, he introduced me to Teresa DiGeronimo, who's been involved in like 50 books. It's an amazing writer. And I started writing it in, I think, around August or September of 2019. And when I got to the first holidays, I couldn't even write for 2 months because it was, I cried more than I laughed. Um, but I figured, I'll write the book because 20 or 30 years from now, I don't want to forget all the funny stories about Sean. And I want it memorialized so that, his sisters and their future children, his, extended family can remember Sean and remember what an amazing human being he was. So I figured, we'll print 200 copies. We'll give them out to friends and family and his teammates and coaches. And then it took on a life of its own. And, it got up to #2 on Amazon in the fatherhood category for the Kindle, #20 in books. And I was like, what is going on here? And that's Sean. That's the magic of Sean. And I always say, it's not my book. I'm just the messenger. And I've been the messenger, for the 29 years of his life involved with Special Olympics. I never would have chose that either. Other people, the volunteers are the most amazing people. They volunteer for a weekend and they say, oh, somebody invited me to come for the weekend and volunteer. And that was 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Those are the real champions of Special Olympics. I got involved because it chose me through Sean. And that's what changed my life. Was this is a young man who lived the most amazing life, and he taught us all he could. And
It's
so hopefully
the
we can learn to live.
definition. It's the definition of taking your mess and making it a message. I mean, that's what it is. And what I love so much about this is that it's incredibly difficult to write a book because I'm trying myself. I will say I'm not trying too hard. I'm trying, and I'm trying to give myself some leeway. So number one, it's incredibly difficult to write a book. Number two, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to write from a place of pain. And the fact that Sean has only passed away not even 2 years ago, and you are able to step up within yourself and put all these amazing stories and emotions and feelings to paper when it was so new and raw, I think is just so moving. And that's what makes the book so powerful. And also, I think it's one thing to look back on a moment in your life, on stories in your life, and when you write them or share them from a place of difficulty or pain, it makes it so much more wholehearted when you look back at it, because you're able to see, look how far I've come since then. Look at how far now, while it was so incredibly painful to lose Sean, it sounds to me like you look at him with such joy and he brings you such life and warmth to your heart that while it's tragic that he's gone, it's so heartwarming that he lives within you.
Well, and I think that's his legacy. I mean, he taught us so many lessons, and it's not easy to live like Sean. I mean, I try every day, but it just came naturally to him. He didn't know, we as entrepreneurs and, type A personalities, I started my company and said, okay, here's the goal for 5 years. And we get there in 3. And what do? Are we happy and we're grateful? No, we move the goalposts and say, okay, let's do double that. Instead of saying, hey, we got there. Yes, we want to be better. Yes, we want to continue to grow, but let's enjoy the journey. And he taught me that life is not a destination. You're not going to be happy and grateful when you get to the destination or the goal. You need to be happy and be grateful during the entire journey. And that's what makes life so much better.
Last question, same question I've asked all my guests for 2 seasons. What is your final message of hope that you want other people to know?
Well, I think that, to be hopeful is to put it in someone else's hands, whether it's God or someone else. Everything that ever happened good in my life, I wasn't trying. I wasn't trying to write a book that was going to be a success. I wasn't trying to be, a really successful entrepreneur and build a company. I just followed my passion and worked hard. And I always tell my daughters, dream big, work hard, and good things happen. So, success is when, preparation meets opportunity. And that's what gives you hope, is that we always think, oh, I want to get to here. Well, who says God doesn't want you to get 3 times past that point? So I think you just leave it up to the universe and you just do everything you can every day and be hopeful and be grateful and be present in the moment and work hard and dream big and never let anybody tell you that your dreams are too big. That's what I always tell the athletes.
Absolutely. The book, my friends, is called Live Like Sean. Go out and get it anywhere where you shop for your books. TJ, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us and sharing your stories and Sean's stories of perseverance. If you have any further questions or comments for myself or for TJ, please visit our website, neverloseyourcape.com, and send us a note in the contact us section. TJ, you're amazing. Thank you for sharing Sean with us. I think that's the most important thing I can say to you is I'm incredibly grateful to have known Sean through you. And I'm so happy that you told his story here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.